What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 10 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games' weekly podcast about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Peter Messi, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. How you doing?
I'm all right. You?
I gotta say, I'm doing good. It's a great, I feel like I say this all. It's a great week to be a Steam Deck fan. You know, you've been pumping out these tutorials left and right. We've got a ton of new listeners to the show. If this is your first time tuning in, or if you're catching up, or whatever, thank you for joining us. Welcome. Lots of new folks coming into the Discord and everything. It's been a good time. Lots of great Steam Deck discussion.
Yeah, it was nice to have some new people pop in by the Discord. I wanted to specifically welcome Jamie, I think it's Lassie, or Jamie Lace to the Discord. They came in and asked a bunch of questions about the Steam Deck that we answered, and then they got the okay from the wife apparently for a Christmas present. So
hell yeah!
Congratulations on a Steam Deck coming your way this Christmas.
I loved when they came into. They were like, "Is it okay if I ask questions? Like, is that the vibe here?" And it's like, "Yeah, brother, let's go. Come on, ask away, baby.
Yeah, ask away.
Yeah.
Always."
And then, of course, you know, this is a very special episode of the show this week because immediately, like literally not even, I want to say 20 minutes after we finished recording last week, Valve dropped a bunch of news, including that you can now get a Steam Deck with no queue and that the Steam Dock is now available. And since last week, we have both secured pre-orders and got them, and they're here, and we've been playing with them for a few days and testing them. We're going to talk all about our initial impressions today, and we're going to have a full review of the Steam Deck dock up on the channel on Monday. So you're going to want to check that out. We're going to talk all about I think, the two major use cases of the device, which is folks like me who kind of want to use it as like a plug-and-play situation to turn your Steam Deck into a Switch, and then folks like Steve who are also interested in, kind of using it as a more of like a PC solution and being able to take advantage of like multi-monitor setup and, potentially using it for capture and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to dig into all of the nitty-gritty about this thing today and on Monday in that full review breakdown. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of October. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we appreciate you helping us keep these mics on and these lights on. And by those lights, I mean the lights on our Steam Deck. My regular job pays for the electricity. But, of course, if you want to get content from us, for free, if you don't have any money to toss our way, flipscreen.games. That's the website where you can find links to all the places that we're making stuff. You can find Steve's awesome Steam Deck tutorials where you can learn cool stuff like how to put custom themes in for your deck, how to get streaming for both PlayStation and Xbox to the Steam Deck. We've got a couple new ones coming out. Steve, you've got a new one dropping this weekend. I know you were interested in teasing.
Yeah, so if everyone's seen boot videos going around the web, they're a little bit cumbersome to download and install, and you can only have like one at a time. So me and some folks over on the Steam Deck Homebrew Discord have been building a plugin called Animation Changer. It taps into steamdeckrepo.com. It'll download anyone you want. You can just search through, scroll through this big list of hundreds of videos. You can download as many as you want. You can either manually select which one you want to show, or you can randomize it. So just randomly pick one whenever you boot your Steam Deck up. So I'm looking forward to showing that off and showing how you can get some animations.
And much like you listeners, I am looking forward to benefiting from Steve's hard work and being able to do that with very little work. It's really, truly a great situation that you and I, the listeners, have here. Steve doing all the legwork and us getting to do all the cool stuff with our Steam Deck. So if you're an audio listener like we know many of you are and you don't check out the YouTube channel, that is, of course, the only place for you to get those Steam Deck tutorials. So that's your PSA. So before we get into the dock impressions, we do have a comment from last week's show that I wanted to bring attention to. This one comes from All Hands on Steam Deck, who has been a longtime listener of the show, I believe around since the very first episode of the Steam Deck podcast. Yeah. So one of our true blue YouTube listeners over there who wrote in and said, And it's in all caps. So I'm not going to yell, but I'll raise my voice slightly just to pretend that I'm screaming, okay? I asked you both nicely last week if you could send me a Steam Deck, and I still haven't received anything. What's the deal? Come on, I watch every episode, like everything. Give me your Steam Deck, or at least the packaging. All hands on Steam Deck, I'm so sorry. It must have gotten lost in the mail. We sent you a package. I don't...
Yeah, we definitely did. It's not this one behind me right here. This is the packaging. I can send you this if you want. Some nice brown paper that my Steam Deck dock came in. I'm not sure you'll want it though.
Yeah, so keep your eyes out for that because I guess your Steam Deck got lost in the mail. We definitely sent you one. Everybody who listens to the show gets a free Steam Deck, so that's how this show works. All right, so let's get into the dock talk here because I think that is going to probably dominate the vast majority of the conversation here today. I have already spent a good amount of time with it. I got mine a little bit before yours. I know you only got yours yesterday, so you haven't had quite as much time to play around with it. I did throw up a thread over on Twitter with like some of my initial thoughts. I've played with it a bit more since then, so I do definitely have quite a bit to say about it, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts because I know you've already experienced a couple things that you were a little disappointed by.
Yeah, so I've played with it a little bit. I've played in a little bit in the PC mode, but the majority of it's been on my TV because I wanted to check that out and give it a try. Because I know you mentioned it had some shortfalls in your thread and you wanted to tweak things. And it took you a little bit of time to kind of get it working, right?
Yeah, so kind of my experience with it was initially I busted it out, and the actual setup itself was really really simple. There's like as soon as you plug it in, there's like a prompt that comes up on the deck, and it'll like ask you to install the dock update that is available, and that kind of ties back to the whole thing where like every update will be manually handled by the Steam Deck and everything, so that's great. Like there's going to be consistent firmware updates and all that's kind of natively supported.
I couldn't find anywhere though, and maybe I was just looking in the wrong place because I looked through the settings to try and find like a button to check for firmware updates for the dock, or for like a version number of the dock, or a change log of what happened with the dock.
I've not seen that anywhere. I'm not sure if it exists. I didn't go hunting for it, but my understanding is that whenever there is an update, as soon as you plug it in, it'll just prompt you to.
It's like when your Joy-Cons need an update.
Yeah, or like like the PlayStation or the Xbox controllers do the same thing, right? Where it's like, oh hey, there's an update available, plug it in, or lay it flat for a minute, and we're gonna install it. So I think that aspect of it is very, very plug and play, very easy, very seamless. But once I got that going, I ran into my first issue with it, and I imagine it's an issue that will be fairly common. It seems to be something that is an issue with the Steam Deck natively, right? And it's something that applies to any kind of external switcher. Where I had an issue where I got it installed and it displayed the image onto my television, no problem. And I unplugged it because I wanted to take some pictures in the dock and kind of update my thread and everything. And then when I went to plug it back in, it wouldn't display on the television, even though I knew that it was pushing an image through. Like it was, and like the Steam Deck was turning on, I could hear it and everything. Like it was clearly sending a signal, but the television wouldn't recognize it. And I ended up finding a solution on a Reddit thread that was about somebody just trying to plug in their Steam Deck to a regular monitor. It was with like a USB-C dock, like the ones that we had. And there was a user on Reddit named IrisCZ who said to try connecting nothing else but the display to the USB dock with no power, plug it in, and then put the Steam Deck to sleep, then turn it back on, and then you could plug it in like normal and it would work. And I did that once, and I haven't had that problem again since. Even if I don't,
interesting.
Even if it's plugged in.
I had that problem with my actual PC this week. I had to unplug everything.
Interesting,
because it wouldn't boot up, and it was like stuck. I was trying to boot into Windows, and we didn't want to do it. So maybe it's just like a thing, and that's like, I guess, like a bit of an edge case, because how often are people going to be unplugging it when it's already turned on to like take pictures and things, and
So
then
the
plug
only
it back
thing,
in.
the only thing I'm thinking though is if you have this plugged into your like television and your plan is to always have this plugged in, that could be a problem. So like if you ever have a situation where you go and plug in the dock and then for whatever reason the display isn't working, try what I just suggested. Unplug the power, cycle your Steam Deck, and then plug it back in and it should work.
I'm also hopeful that that's something they can either iron out through firmware
Yeah.
updates for the dock or software on the Steam OS side, because you've got to imagine that's like a pretty
Yeah, I mean, it
common
was a common enough problem I was able to quickly find a solution. It did take me about 15, 20 minutes of fooling around with it because I just wasn't sure what was happening, you know? But I don't say this to, like, give that as a criticism or a critique, just more like a PSA that if you find this, it's a somewhat common issue, if this does happen to you, there is a pretty easy fix. At first, I was like, oh, no, like, I wonder if my dock is defective. Like, I was worried I was going to have to send it back in and everything. Obviously, that would have been a bust. But so then to talk about like what you were saying, right? Like the actual experience of using it, I think it's interesting because I think it represents a major step forward from when the last time we talked about this. I think back in July, we had a conversation about like when I had plugged in and I was trying to play around with like Jedi Fallen Order and, you know, I was having
Was
trouble.
that the last time you properly tried it then? Because we did speak a couple of weeks ago about that major update that
Correct.
they've done where they did the like dock mode.
So this is my first time playing since then, yes. And I think it's come a long way. I think the native experience of like plugging those games in, it looks a lot sharper. And I think with a little bit of tweaking, I was able to get a pretty good performance out of the games I tried. Like I spent a good amount of time with Cult of the Lamb, and I was able to get that running to a point where it like looked stable and like it felt pretty good. I don't think it looked quite as sharp as it might on, you know, if it was like properly optimized for a console, right? There's still a little bit of that kind of shakiness and inconsistency. And unfortunately, that was also kind of the experience with Jedi Fallen Order. But again, I think it is a major improvement, right? Where like I wasn't able to get the game in like proper full screen before. That works now. I was able to, by like playing with the settings, I think I had them on medium and I had it at like 45 FPS and it was like pretty stable. You know, I don't think it was as sharp an experience as playing on the deck natively, and it wasn't as sharp as an experience as playing on like a PS4 Pro. But
well, it probably is the same resolution. You're just trying to stretch it up to fill like a 55, 65-inch TV, right? Rather than like a little 8-inch screen.
Yeah, and I'm showing the footage right now for folks on YouTube. You can see like it looks clean enough, right? Like it would certainly be a fine way to play the game in a pinch. But I think ultimately, like what I don't love about it is how, you know, like I think at the end of the day, this doesn't represent an ideal way to experience these games, right? Like you're better off playing either on the Steam Deck in handheld mode or on a console plugged into the TV that's, you know, able to keep up. So like I don't think it's quite there. But I think like it's a night and day difference from where it was just 2-3 months ago. So with that in mind, I think
I also would love to get my hands on it to try and like configure yours, because I bet I could probably eke a little bit more out if I turned the profiler on, had a look at like where's the bottleneck? Is it the GPU or the CPU? Is probably going to be the GPU on that game, and should we use FSR or should we use TAA instead? Like use the built-in upscalers.
Yeah,
like, I think there are probably still some things that you can do.
And I did comment on that where like I think when I was playing around with like Cult of the Lamb, I said it was like it feels nearly on par with I think what you would get on Switch, but I think you could probably eke out more performance if you knew what you were doing a little bit better. Because I wasn't doing, you know, I was playing with the settings, but I certainly am not, you know, an expert when it comes to that stuff. But I think one of the things that I think is actually a really good use case for it is, you know, I know a lot of people are interested in the Steam Deck as an emulator. And I think for that, it's actually a perfect solution. Because I think when it came to using like the kind of Amazon Basics like plug and play experience, it was fine. But it certainly has its limitations.
Doesn't feel stable, and I think that was my biggest issue with it. And actually, I've scratched my Steam Deck with that, so I'm not particularly pleased because it's made of metal. So I've got like a slight scratch on the plastic.
So now it's like you look at this, right? And like I think that the dock itself is really good. Like the lip is small. It doesn't come up on the screen. So like that's like a really good I think benefit of it. It's got a nice piece of rubber. It's like nice and stable. Like I tried putting it on a desk and shaking the desk. I couldn't knock it over.
But the problem I've got is you really cannot use the Steam Deck while it's in there. Like they posed in like a lot of the like press pictures, right? For it was like, oh, this would be like the secondary screen while you're playing like your RTS on your monitor. You'll have like Discord open or something. Try putting your Steam Deck in that dock and then pressing like the Steam button or the dot 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 button. It will move if you do it, like if you put it down on the desk.
What are you talking
and
about?
like press the button.
Okay.
It will move.
No.
Did it know? Well, fair enough.
See, I'm doing it right now.
You got to hold it in a pretty precarious position, and like if you are touching something towards the top of the touchscreen, I found that it was like a little bit less stable up there. For the most part, though, I'm really happy with it for its purpose.
I am of the opinion it's very specific use cases in which it will be knocked around. Yeah. I think it's a pretty good. Like I think it's really a good. Like I'm going on my honeymoon in a like a week now. Holy shit. And I'm gonna bring my Steam Deck instead of my Switch. I think this time around, and I'm like, this is gonna be like perfect for when I'm on the plane. Right? Like if I get tired of holding it, like I'm just gonna put it on this, and I'm gonna, bust out my.
It's a good size as well. It makes me wish that the Switch dock was like this size.
Yeah, it's great for travel. Like you could literally put this in a pocket, and like because it has the lip so low, like there's no risk of scratching the screen when you pull it in or out, any of that stuff. I've been using.
Now, I know a lot of people are unhappy about that lip though, because if they bought, say, the Project Kill Switch from Dbrand, the case will not fit in there. There is no way. The like tolerance is so tight.
Yeah,
it's like wedged in there without a case. There's just no way.
But I mean, like that's one of those things, right? Where it's like I don't think you can blame Valve for not.
It's not fault of the product.
Third party stuff. Yeah, and like I totally respect. I know that there are a couple folks in the community that have those, and we're interested in that as a question. It's one of those things where like. I think for the average user, it's a good choice. And I think if you are somebody who does have like a bulkier case or something like that, I guess you'll have to look for a third-party solution, And
there are a bunch from like JSOX, or you can use a dongle still, which obviously will work.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of them, you can get them for various different specifications. If you want it to be 1080p or 4K, then there's various different price points.
Right. And so, for me, like my intention is not to use the deck when it's plugged into this thing, right? Like it's to use it as a tool for either playing across the room or streaming, right? So like I've been using my PlayStation 5 controller synced up with it, which works really, really well. It's pretty seamless, and you can use the PlayStation button to like pull up the Steam menu and everything. And I think it works just like a native like PlayStation controller experience. So like that's been good.
And PlayStation plus X or Xbox plus A will
pulls up the keyboard
access menu as well.
Yeah, which is great.
No, it will pull up the quick access menu. So PlayStation plus X at the bottom.
Okay. Maybe it's plus square.
Right.
I think
it's plus square brings the
keyboard up. Yeah, but yeah, so it's that part is really good. So I think overall, like I'm torn on it because I think when we get it to your side and a lot of the criticisms that you have clocked on it, I think a lot of them are valid. I think particularly considering that this is a pretty expensive piece of hardware. I
think that's where my complaints come from. First, because the fact that I've been using a £17 dongle from Amazon Basics, this doesn't really add much more to the table.
See, and that I think in its current state, I think that's a fair criticism. But I think if you don't think about this as like buying it right now today, and you think about it as a long-term investment.
I've always seen you can't review a product on promises because they may never come to fruition, you know?
No, you're right, but I don't think you can. I also don't think it's fair to review a product in a vacuum because
No,
like
that's fair. I don't see the problems that I have issues with changing in a fundamental way. Now, I'll caveat by saying that I think the experience of having the whole of your Steam library on your TV is still like phenomenal. It's amazing. The fact that you can do that, I think, is incredible, and like Valve should be praised for their achievement in both the Steam Deck and the docking station because it got a rebrand. And I'm happy with the product overall. I think my biggest disappointment was they put a tweet out last Thursday when this was announced for release, and they revealed that it had FreeSync, which wasn't known before. The FreeSync is specific just to DisplayPort, and that wasn't clear, I don't think, that you cannot get FreeSync or variable refresh rate through the HDMI port at all. And the DisplayPort doesn't carry audio, from what I can tell. At least the devices I've tried it with won't carry audio to them. But let me know if someone's tried it and it does, then please do let me know.
So the point I was driving to there is like I think even with stuff like that though, I have pretty good confidence that like this doesn't represent the final version of like what this product is capable of, right? And I think if you look at the track record that Valve has established with the Steam Deck, they've done a really good job of, releasing a thing that was clearly not finished and half-baked and taking feedback from the audience and from the wish lists that you see on Reddit and Twitter and all these spaces where they're clearly paying attention. And then iterating, right? And like we know that there's going to be firmware updates. We know that they have plans to continue to optimize and iterate on like the docked experience. And I think those are the things that, like today, right now, would I recommend that you, the Steam Deck owner, go out and grab this thing? Probably not. I think there are some pretty specific use cases for who it's worth and who it's not. But I also think that I'm fairly confident that Valve will get to the point where it is something that I think is something that makes sense for the average person, the person that wants to use it in the way that I think, the clearest analogy to this is the Switch dock. And I think that if they can hit that to the point where you can plug this in and it'll automatically like optimize whatever game you're playing for the docked experience to some degree, in the way that it already is doing that more so than it did in July when I tried to do it before. I think it will get to a point where at least that element of it will be worth the money. And I think the fact that it does have like a really good amount of technology packed into a small package between, the three USB ports that you've got here on the side, which you guys can't really see.
Yeah.
And then the Ethernet and everything. Like, I think for what most people want this to be, I am pretty confident it'll get there. Whether or not every one of the things that you hoped would be capable for it to do, like I can't speak to that obviously. Like with the DisplayPort stuff, like we'll just have to see what Valve's plan is there and how they react to that criticism. But I think in terms of getting it closer to being like an easy way for you to plug and play your Steam library on your television, I think for this being version 1.0,
that's still there, and
it's in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean that's still there, and I think if Valve had locked it down to only the Steam Deck dock worked, and I hadn't tried it on the TV like 5 months ago, I would have been wowed by the experience at this point, right?
I hear you.
But because I've already been doing this for 5 months, and I've been using my capture card with it, and I've used it as like a PC. I've done all of those things with a device that's significantly cheaper. Because this is £80 in the UK, it's $90. It's a big ask, You're coming up to like a decent chunk on like the low end Steam Deck. It's like almost a quarter of the price, and that's a big expense for people who, especially on that model, if you were more price conscious and you pick that one, you're probably going to go for a third party solution.
I will say though, like, I know that there are other third party decks that are cheaper, that are like fancier than what we have. I don't think it's fair to compare this fucking thing to that. Like it's like yeah, like it had the same basic functionality of me being able to use it as like a capture device.
There's like the JSOX one, there's the Ivola one, and those are all coming in at like $40, so around about like half the price.
And fair play. I think my argument to that, I was having a conversation about this with my buddy, who's also a Steam Deck owner, and he was making that argument of like, I think it's hard to justify that price when like you can get a third party thing that offers much of the same functionality, if not the exact same functionality.
I actually don't think it's outrageously overpriced.
Let me finish. But I think the difference is that those third party devices are not going to be supported by Valve in the way that this is, right? Like they're not going to have Steam Deck handled operating or not operating system, firmware updates, right? Like, and those firmware updates are the thing that made playing the majority of games in docked mode usable, right? So like, I think that's the thing to keep in mind is that, like, I think right now you're probably right. Those third-party devices might be a better or a similar solution for half the money, but I don't think that those are going to yield the same long-term investment for you as a player. Because I am confident that Valve will iterate on this device and try to make it more valuable. And who knows? Maybe this is one of those things that I'm going to say it and you'll clip it out and throw it in my face a year from now and I'll be like, Thing's the same thing. It's overpriced. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I don't know what else they can really add to it, knowing what the device is capable of. It's not like there's, like a GPU or something.
You also get this
though.
Gonna,
like suddenly activate.
Getting a whole other official charger.
45-watt. Yeah, it's really good.
That's not cheap.
And that's a definite price. That's a definite addition to it, and it's nice to have. I don't think it's overpriced. I think it's a quality product. I think having the firmware stuff come in straight from the operating system is great. I do think though there's like two sides to it. There's clear issues with the software. The hardware, I think, is solid, and that was the same deal with the Steam Deck at launch, but the software has so many problems. They've turned off a feature that was there since launch. They turned it off in the last big update where they spoke about the docked mode. I think it was 3.3.2. And you have to go into developer mode to turn it back on to be able to change the frame rate that the external display gets output at. Now, if you have a 120 hertz display, you might want to output to 40 hertz, like I'm doing on the internal display. The fact that you have to go into system, turn on developer mode, then go down to a separate menu and turn on, like, enable external, like refresh rates override, it's really weird. Really weird.
But you got to imagine that's a band-aid,
hidden
right?
some things away.
Yeah, like, I'm sure that's a band-aid.
It is, because I think they wanted to get it out. Working. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to... And that's my whole point, right? Is, like, you're right that it's not... You can't judge the dock for what it could be, right? But I also don't think it's fair to judge it today for what it is. Because what it is now, I think shouldn't be anyway what it is in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, based on how they've handled the Steam Deck tech prior to now.
But I feel like that's the same case for the dongle, for third-party docks. I don't think that any of the firmware they apply to the dock is really going to fundamentally change it. It's the software of SteamOS and the Steam client and that jank that's around it at the moment, because it still automatically opens games at 16:10, and you have to go into properties to override it to be a 16:9 resolution. It's weird. Why does it not detect that I'm outputting to a 16:9 display?
See, that's the thing, though.
And set the resolution to
I think that is something that it will do. I think that will be... I bet you that a week from now we'll be like, 20 minutes after we recorded, Valve announced that they fixed it. Like, I bet you that in the next 2-4 weeks that functionality has been figured out, and the 20 minutes I spent playing with settings on Jedi will be something that now the Steam Deck knows how to do itself. Or at least it's closer, right? Like, and because that's, I think that is something where it could really have a leg up, is that, like, the software can work in tandem with the hardware because it's proprietary, right? And they're building to work with that dock. Sure, it'll support third-party docks, but will they be as good? I don't know. And that remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah.
But even so, like I really like the build quality of the thing. I like how small it is. I like that I can just throw it in a bag with my Steam Deck and I'm good to go. You know, like I'm very excited to use it for a week as my only gaming device and see how I feel about it after that.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, my biggest complaint was that VRR support and FreeSync, because I really think that would have been a game changer. To have variable refresh rate for those games that are floating between 40 and 60 FPS, which is quite frequent on Steam Deck. You can get those AAA games to hit 40 fairly regularly. You can get close to 60, but you'll very rarely hit it. If you had variable refresh rate or FreeSync support in there, you'd be able to resolve that. The display would just match the frame rate.
Do you think that's something that they could get to at some point with software?
No, I do not. I don't. And the reason is that they're running on Linux, and I don't think they want to pay the HDMI forum for a license for the VRR support. AMD FreeSync Premium could work over HDMI, and my TV supports it. So I'm hoping that maybe they would support AMD FreeSync rather than the HDMI 2.1 specs VRR, because they've obviously got a partnership with AMD. They built the APU together in the device. So that's a possibility. That works on DisplayPort currently. So it's possible that they could activate that at a later date with a firmware update. And if they do, I'll be very happy and it will pretty much resolve all of my problems, because that's the biggest issue I have with it. That and the terrible docked experience, because it's still not quite right. Still not 100% there. Now, if you're playing games that are only in 16:9 anyway, like you're playing emulated games which default to 16:9, like you're playing GameCube games or Wii games or whatever,
that works.
Then I think
perfectly,
that's absolutely fine.
And that experience I think was great. And I honestly, it doesn't even like. I did it with older consoles that are not in like a wide format. They looked fine too. Like I think like if you're one of the folks that wants to use your Steam Deck primarily as an emulation station, this is a perfect solution for you. And like with all the adapters and everything, you could very easily, you know, I mean, obviously you can sync up multiple modern controllers, but if you're interested in using like one of the like USB plug and play, like retro ones, like things like that, like, you know, I think it's really perfect for that. So yeah,
just go careful with those that they don't require any like Windows drivers or anything to be installed, because the 8-bit DOE ones, I think there's a community driver that you can install for Linux, but it's not like officially supported out of the box.
Okay, that's good to know.
So you gotta make sure and check that they work with Linux, and they're just like a Bluetooth X input controller. If they are, then it'll work fine.
I will say I highly recommend the PlayStation 5 and the Pro controller. They both work really well.
I've used an Xbox controller too. They work great, and you can hook up multiple of those. I played a game of Mario Party.
The thing I struggled with Xbox, they seem, at least, and it might just be that I'm doing something stupid, but it seemed to have a harder time syncing up.
Oh no, I've had the exact opposite. It's no problem. And the thing I like about the Xbox Series X controller is you can double tap the sync button and it will switch between two devices. So I've got mine synced to my Xbox,
really,
and I've got mine synced to my Steam.
I wonder if that's the problem. Do I need to do that first before I sync to a new device?
You'll need to press and hold it when you sync.
That's what I was doing. It wouldn't do it.
It'll go. So turn it on and then like try it.
I even tried doing it at somebody else's house.
Xbox, maybe.
I did it at another house where my Xbox wasn't, to be like, will this work? And it wouldn't work. But the Pro controller and the PlayStation have both worked without fail. Like as soon as I do it.
Super weird. See, my PlayStation 1, I could not get it done.
My PlayStation 1
PlayStation on earlier.
My PlayStation 1 is even smart enough to remain synced to the Steam Deck. Like when I was having the issue where I was like cycling it, it would cycle and then it would turn off the controller, and when I pressed the PlayStation button, it would resync to the Steam Deck rather than to the PlayStation. So that worked really well. So
yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things you brought up, right? So you can't turn the console or the Steam Deck on from remotely.
No, you have to walk over and turn it on.
The only controller that will turn it on is the Steam controller, and it makes me want one even more now, because it will turn the Steam Deck
They
on
need to make a
remotely.
new one because the old one is garbage, Steve. You don't want it.
Yes, but I want to be able to turn my Steam Deck on from my sofa when I'm like finished watching YouTube videos and I go, I want to play some games.
You're gonna buy
I
one
want to be able
just to
turn
use it
on.
as a remote, like
There's a power button, yeah.
that's it. Damn, I should have bought it for $1 like 10 years ago to do that.
I am going to try a few other solutions. If you have a Bluetooth keyboard that's plugged in with a dongle, it will work. The problem is the Steam Deck turns off Bluetooth when it goes into sleep mode to save battery, even when it's plugged in. And I'm hoping they can patch that as well. Like while it's plugged in, keep Bluetooth and Wi-Fi active so you can download my games in the background and allow me to turn the console on through Bluetooth. If you can do both of those things, then you've solved the problem. And that's what all other consoles seem to do.
Yeah, that's the dream. I had I downloaded I'm getting a couple games set up for when I go on vacation, and I decided to download Outer Worlds because it was on sale. It was like $20, and I was like, slam dunk. I've been wanting to replay that. Perfect for Steam Deck. And it was like, oh, this is a 50 gigabyte game. I was like, oh, son of a bitch! Like I'm gonna have to leave this on forever.
I need to try the Ethernet because the Wi-Fi is so slow. You get like 4 megabits per second.
It's a lot better than that on mine. My Wi-Fi is pretty good compared to yours.
Sucks.
But like I literally like when I was done playing for the night, I was like, okay, let me start the download. And I just like stuck it like I have a little like nightstand, and I have a drawer, like a open face drawer that you can slide stuff in. That's like where I keep my consoles at night. And I just had it open.
You gotta keep the screen on all night.
I had it open in the case, just on, and let it download, and then I kept like checking it, and like before I went to bed, I was like, "Oh, it's done, cool, done." Like,
it's horrible. I hope they fix that. That seems like an easy fix. Just keep Wi-Fi going when it's plugged in.
Yeah.
And there's one last thing I want to talk about. If people do get this dock, and it's a very important one because a lot of people don't realize this. It's not a console, it's a PC. And that means it runs in a different RGB range to all of your other consoles. Your consoles are consumer devices. They are outputting in what's known as a limited RGB range. So the blacks are crushed. PCs output at full RGB range. There is a setting on your TV where you can either change black level or RGB range, or you may need to set the input to be a PC, which is what we have to on LG TVs. You have to specifically go into the HDMI settings, say this is a PC.
Yeah.
And it will then show it correctly. Otherwise, the screen that you see will be way darker than it is on the handheld device, and you may need to overcompensate by turning brightness up.
I don't know how this works on other devices. I can only speak to my experience with a Samsung, but I have a Samsung QLED, and it has a gaming mode that will apply a bunch, like it'll do those settings kind of manually for you based on like, oh, you're in gaming mode, you're not in gaming mode. Something that I noticed is my TV does have the ability to auto turn to gaming mode. So whenever you turn on a console, it'll make all those adjustments, and then when you go back to normal television,
it probably won't do it for
it doesn't.
Steam Deck.
So, but what you can do is you can manually turn it on, and then it'll do those things. So I just, rather than leaving it on automatic when I'm playing on Steam Deck, I have to go and toggle it on, and it adjusts everything because it was kind of washed out natively.
That's another HDMI 2.1 specification. It's called ALLM, which is automatic low latency mode. And yeah, it will not turn on because I don't think the Steam Deck supports any of that stuff, because it also doesn't support HDR, which I specifically went to check. At least it doesn't through HDMI. It might through DisplayPort. I haven't tried that, which was also another disappointment. But they never advertised that, so I can't really complain about it. I'm happy with my purchase overall. And so's my partner. They're busy playing Euro Truck Simulator on the TV for the first time. So
yeah.
Overall, I think the Steam Deck dock, just like the Steam Deck at launch, it's not ready for the prime time, and it's not because of the hardware. It's because of the software.
It's a work in progress, and I think if you are the type of Steam Deck fan that likes that like fucks with the fact that it's kind of half baked and that stuff's going to be happening week by week and you'll get to see that growth and everything, and you've got the money, then I think it's worth picking up. I think it's a fun thing to tinker around with. But I think if you're like the average user and you're just like, does this deliver that Switch experience? I don't know that it's quite there yet. If you're comfortable playing with settings and doing the whole PC, like, I'm going to switch to full screen and then windowed full screen and see which one looks better, and I'm going to do this and that and do this and that, and like, if you're comfortable...
I mean, that's all TV mode, and I think TV mode, you're 100% right. I think if your goal is to use this in like desktop mode, then it's a whole other story, because desktop mode is flawless. It runs fantastically. You can plug it in. You can have dual monitor setup between like the internal screen and the external screen. You can put whatever devices you want. I use a keyboard from 1989 and it works on the Steam Deck. So like anything you throw at it will work, and it's honestly fantastic to use as a PC. I'm going to be doing a video actually where the Steam Deck is the only PC I use for a week, and as a programmer that's pretty terrifying, but I'm looking forward to it as a prospect. So I'm going to be like programming and streaming and doing podcasts from it, and I want to see if I can actually make it through a week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
And I feel like if your main type of games that you play are like MMOs or RTSs or that kind of thing, then having it in desktop mode where you can use like a mouse and keyboard and have like Discord open on a secondary screen, it's a really great experience.
Something I haven't gotten to do yet is I'm going to buy a wireless mouse and keyboard and use it to try to play like PC games that like
on your sofa?
Yes. Yeah, because I have I have a lap, you know what I mean? Like one of those like lap desks that you have for laptops, where it's like
with like a cushion
on the bottom and it's a flat surface, so you can So like I have one of those. My goal is I'm gonna pop those down and try just playing PC games that I don't like playing on the Steam Deck. I bought what is that Zoo Tycoon Planet Zoo, right? And I was trying to play that, and I was like, this is not a good experience on the controller. On mouse and keyboard, I think it'll be great.
On the trackpads, it's awesome.
I didn't like it.
I played that game.
I didn't like it.
Fair enough, yeah.
And part of it might be that I had never played the game before, so I'm like trying to learn the systems of the game, and it's like...
And it's telling you to use a mouse and scroll.
Yeah, and it's like click and scroll, and like, you know, like press S, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what
scroll wheel.
I don't know what any buttons are, right? Like, so like if I knew what I was doing, maybe that would be different. So like, whatever, right? But I know that that's a game that I will fuck with heavy with mouse and keyboard. So I'm excited to do that and be like, okay, like, can I bring the PC experience to my living room in a meaningful way? Like, will this be a way for me to get back into those PC style games that I love to play, but that don't really work on a controller, you know? Like, so I'm excited for that aspect of it. That's going to be one of the things I try to get done this weekend for our review on Monday, so I'll report back on that.
Yeah, I've got a steering wheel to try out as well before my review goes. And you know what, I also want to touch on not just like desktop mode. I honestly lost my train of thought. You carry on. You pick it up, Pierre. I lost my train.
You got it, buddy. I do think one of the other big things is like being able to use it as like a tabletop mode. You know, like I think one of the things that I thought is interesting is like if you do have this plugged in, you can just use it as a charging station too, and like use it to like manage whatever devices you have plugged in.
Actually.
That's really nice. Like that's gonna be good on my flight, you know, and things like that.
You know, I also thought about getting like an external SSD. And using that and putting all of my ROMs on it. So then I can pick and choose what I want to take with me, what I don't want to have with me, and just like, or even sync games across it. I'm interested to try that out as well. There's a lot you could do with it, you know. I think you could even like use this as like a media station as well.
I was gonna say that I'm having that same thought because like again I'm going to a foreign country and I don't like know what the situation is with TV there, and I was thinking about like I have a hard drive that I have a bunch of movies and stuff saved on. Like I could probably bring that and just pop this in, and just as long as I have VLC installed on the desktop mode, like I could use this as a, you know, a media station as well while I'm traveling and
just open up a browser, couldn't you? Just like use Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's true. I could do that. So yeah,
you know,
I'm gonna do that. So maybe I'll make a video too. of like, I used the
that'd be a
Steam
good
Deck as
one.
my only thing for a week or whatever.
I really think your wife will murder you if that's what you do on your holiday. Like I use the Steam Deck and like you're there videoing. Hold on a second, Sarah. I just need to take some video.
I need some B-roll. She'll kill me. Yeah. So maybe not, but. So
what I remembered what I was gonna say.
Hit it.
Which was if you do get a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, get one with a dongle, because if you get one with a dongle, you'll be able to turn it on.
Oh, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna get a dongle one and just leave it plugged into the back of this. And like my goal is I'm just gonna keep the mouse and keyboard like tucked with my controllers, and I'll just pull them out when it's time to game. You know.
Yeah, I used to have one years ago. I used to use a Mac Mini as like a multimedia thing underneath the TV before like Fire Sticks and Rokus and all that stuff existed.
Sure.
And I had like this keyboard, and it looked like the bottom half of a laptop. It was like a keyboard with a trackpad and like stuff.
Yeah.
It looked like someone had just chopped the screen off, and like that was what I used, and it worked great.
Yeah, it's not a bad solution. I've thought about doing that in the past, like buying a big gaming PC and just making it like a living room device, and I'm kind of excited to try and use this in that way and see how I feel about it.
Well, I still really want you to check out some of the streaming stuff from your gaming PC, like Steam Link and things like that.
One of these days.
I also think that's another like great use case for it is you've got your PS5 in another room and you want to use this in the bedroom, and it's like a secondary place for it. You know, you don't
hell of a lot easier to
consoles.
unplug this and pull it upstairs than it is to move the PlayStation. Yeah. You know, yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to use it that way. That's one of the things I'm definitely gonna test out in the weeks to come. So before we get out of here, we did get a question. This one comes from, again, and you'll have to let us know, Jamie. I believe it's Jamie Lass, or it could be Jamie Lassie. Definitely let us know how to pronounce that. But Jamie wrote in on the Discord and said, do you think Valve is going to make a bundle with the deck and dock soon? I don't think so. I think that they probably look at this as like very much like an optional luxury device, and if you want it, you can buy one. You know, like why bundle it and drive up the cost of a already expensive device? Not overpriced, but expensive.
I agree. Unless they left out one of the charging bricks, I can maybe see that.
That could
get the device with it.
That could work. I could see that. Yeah, that would be
bottom one. Then rather than being like what $350, it becomes $400. At least in the UK, I could maybe see that. So like the dock becomes £50 instead of $79, but you lose the charging brick. Could even out the price. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon though, and I don't think this is the last accessory we're going to see from Valve. I think there's probably a lot more on the way.
I think you're right. There might even be one we talk about next week. So I guess before we close things out, there is kind of one more like part B story that we'll get through real quickly here. We talked earlier about the boot animations that Valve has kind of endorsed now, right? There was a thing that was kind of being built out by the homebrew community. Of course, don't forget, we will have probably by the time you're watching this right now, a video going up today that you can check out all about boot animations and how you can take advantage of all of Steve's hard work to set them up on your Steam Deck. But Valve has... well, they haven't announced it yet, but there's reference that was found in some code that's talking about the idea that they're going to basically start adding their own boot animations that you'll be able to use with Steam points, right? Which, if you're not familiar, Steam points you'll earn from making purchases on the Steam store, and you can use them for like new avatars, or like for like cool borders for your avatar, or like stickers that you can use in chat and things like that, and profile backgrounds and things. It's all weird, goofy cosmetic stuff. But obviously people like that stuff. So this is, I think, interesting. I like the idea of having more things to buy with these points, but I gotta say I'm not super jazzed about this though, because I think it has the same problem as pretty much anything but the borders do, where like you can just make anything you want. Like you're allowed to upload a custom graphic for your icon. You're allowed to use a GIF for your icon. Like you could pretty easily just make it whatever you want. So like I want it, like stuff like the keyboards I think is cool, because that feels like I mean, I guess you
Oh,
can.
you can get custom.
You did the
ones for
custom
those,
themes thing and everything too, right? So it's like it's not like they don't exist, right? But like when it's an open source platform, I feel like that stuff feels a little less exciting, and I would love,
Yeah, it's a
for
lot of less effort though, right? You
that
you
is
go
true.
to a store, you spend some points, they're in your settings, and you just select them.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've got 113,000 points burning a hole in my pocket.
Oh my God.
So I need to spend them on something, and I'll chuck them some money for some boot animations, even though they're probably all going to be like Steam themed, or they'll remind us that they've not made a Half-Life game for decades.
It'll be
and
like,
we'll have
it's
something that like brings
Team
us
Fortress
here
2.
to
You
our
guys
eye.
like that, right? You remember Team Fortress 2? Yeah, there you go. We got that one.
I'm not massively bothered. I would like to see more though. I'd like to see them even go as far as doing themes themselves,
Sure.
and having like official themes that they do. Because I like the fact that the homebrew community can still provide things that you can't get. Because you're obviously not going to get copyrighted videos on here. Like I put the original PS1 video as my boot animation
My
earlier.
favorite stuff is the ones of people taking copyrighted things and then like making a Steam Deck version, right? Like there's a great
Yeah,
one.
like the Gabe Cube.
Yeah, or like there's a really, really good one where it's like the old VHS Disney animated the like classic, and it just says Steam Deck instead of Disney in the font, and it's got like crackle and like a VHS, burn or all that kind of stuff. And I saw one that's like the Futurama thing, and it has like a cute little, it's like made by
There's an
Gabe and
Office
Co.
one as
or whatever.
well.
Yeah, goofy shit like that. Like they're not going to do that kind of thing, right? Like, so you'll always have that benefit of the homebrew community of being able to just do whatever, you're only limited by your imagination.
Yeah, and they're definitely ramping up for this, because the beta version of the actual Steam Deck client, so there's the OS and there's the client. The Steam Deck client beta had an update this week, today actually, which bumped it up from a maximum length of 10 seconds to a maximum length of 30 seconds for your intro video. So I think they're prepping their videos themselves to get this store ready, in especially with when you've got references to it found in the code on their store.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll definitely keep you guys posted on that one as the story develops, but I think keep your eyes peeled, because obviously we'll have our tutorial up that you can check out. Either it's already up now or it'll be up soon today, on how you can do this yourself. But, there's obviously people who, and I think that's part of the strategy of the Steam Deck, right, is Valve wanting to kind of demystify PC gaming, and there are certainly folks that don't want to get in there and tinker. So those folks will be far more inclined to do things this way, a little more familiar, So I think definitely a good idea, whether or not it ends up being for us, considering, we have the world at our fingertips when you can kind of just do the homebrew stuff. But that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. If you want to write in with your thoughts on the Steam Deck dock, or your questions about the Steam Deck dock, or any of the other stuff that we've talked about today, or on any episode of the Steam Deck Podcast, make sure you write into us, questions@flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord like so many of you have this past week. Thank you for coming and joining us. Thank you for being a new listener. Thank you for checking out the tutorials and subscribing to the channel, coming and joining the Discord, being a part of the community. We really appreciate you. Happy to have some new friendly faces. And definitely let us know if there's any other things you'd like us to either chat about here on the show, or tutorials that you'd like to see Steve take a stab at. We've definitely gotten a couple good requests from the community that have made it onto the backlog of stuff we're going to work on. So
yeah, I've got a big long document now of like ideas that I need to plow through at some point. They're never end.
So definitely keep them coming, and if you do end up hitting a wall or a question or anything like that, the Discord is of course the best place to come and ask questions and get help and everything. So we hope you'll come be a part of what we're doing here. And, of course, if you want to find links to our other shows or any of the other places we are on the web, that's flipscreen.games. Head to the website. There's a link in the description down below. You can find links to our Twitch channel, our Patreon, if you want to become a Patreon supporter or a producer, and suggest main topics, get your name read on the air, get extra early access, all kinds of good stuff. So however you choose to show your support or get involved, we really do appreciate you tuning into this week's show. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast, baby. Take it easy.